Howdy folks, and welcome to Austin, Texas. And look at that. That's the 2022 Toyota Corolla Cross. Think of it as a beefier Toyota Corolla that sits higher, has all-wheel drive as an option, and has a lot more space. And in this video, I'm going to give you driving impressions, going to talk about its pricing, going to talk about its powertrain, and a lot more. The Toyota Corolla is one of the best-selling cars in the world. They just recently passed 50 million Corollas, and that's in just over 50 years. The Toyota Corolla dates back to around 1967 in Japan, and around 1973 is when the United States started getting them. Early 70s, I should say, because not everybody knew what they were. The Corolla really did start life as a very simple vehicle, and since the 70s, there's been several different types. Let me put it to you this way. There's rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, turbocharged, supercharged, wagons, sedans, coupes, you name it, with one exception. They haven't had a crossover yet. So, what do? We get ourselves a crossover. Now, this crossover is unique because it is right in between the Toyota CHR and the Toyota RAV4. It is smaller than the RAV4. CHR and this vehicle do share some components, of course, but I would wager that a vehicle like this will pretty much remove the CHR from Toyota's lineup. And the main reason for that is simple. This vehicle has all-wheel drive as an option. And in the near future, Toyota basically said, without actually officially saying it, that the overseas hybrid edition of this vehicle is coming to the United States. When you look at the competition, it's very interesting. And that's because at $22,000, and that's where the L starts, you get a front-wheel drive base model. Unfortunately, in this video, I'm not going to be able to do any serious off-roading, just a little bit of dirt roads and whatnot. And when we get this to Colorado, we will test it a little bit more thoroughly off-road. However, this powertrain, it works pretty good. It's not fast, 169 horsepower, and it puts out 150 pound-feet of torque. That's a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. Pretty much what you're getting in certain Corollas. The CVT, the continuously variable transmission. Toyota builds an interesting one because it actually has a first gear. That first gear gives you a much better feeling off the line. It's still not sporty, but it feels pretty good. One final thing about this vehicle, I bet you're wondering about its gas mileage. Guess what? It's extremely efficient. And I'm not saying that just because Toyota flew me out here and fed me. It gets 30 miles per gallon combined with all-wheel drive. That's good. 32 miles per gallon combined if you get the front-wheel drive version. That's pretty good too. All right, so what about design? They did a great job, I think, with the styling. This styling is what I think is the future of Toyota. As a matter of fact, I look at this car as kind of a tall in the saddle Corolla. Just over 8 inches of ground clearance. Unfortunately, a very big overhang. If you get the L or the LE, you get 17-inch wheels. These are 18s and actually have a very interesting, intricate design. Not that much of a fan, but it's okay. You also have this plastic component right here. You have it on the rear fender as well. It looks like it's rough and badass, although I can tell you, you scratch it, you're going to be unhappy. So be careful if you do off-road it. Yes, you can get a power lift gate. And yes, you can get up to 25 cubic feet of cargo space in the back. If you get the front-wheel drive model, slightly less with the all-wheel drive model. I suspect it has to do with the fact that there's different suspensions. That's right. 2 different suspensions in this vehicle. Torsion beam for front-wheel drive, independent for all-wheel drive. Does make sense, doesn't it? There is a spare tire under here. It is just a donut. There we go. There's a little tiny bit of storage back there, but not a ton. The overall design of this vehicle is a little bit more logical than your average Toyota Corolla hatchback. And that goes to the back seat, which is, in my mind, one of the most important things. Back seat space. Now, last time, before the embargo popped, I wasn't able to tell you my real serious impressions of this back seat. But I'm going to tell you now. It's good. It's pretty damn good, especially because it has air conditioning back here. And it's able to hold my big, fat American booty. But one of the things that a lot of you guys are curious about is whether or not these seats move. They don't. not in terms of comfort. So you can't slide them back and forth like some vehicles. They don't tilt. However, what it's really about, headroom and legroom. And this has way more headroom and legroom than any of the Toyota Corolla hatchbacks I've been in. So it kind of brings to mind the fact that for 22 grand, you can get one of these with front wheel drive and a lot more space, and it wouldn't be that much different in price than the Corolla hatchback. There are around, I think, 26 or 28 different accessories you can get with this vehicle, including a tow hitch. This vehicle, when properly equipped, can tow up to 1,500 pounds. I really hope that Toyota gives us one with the tow package so we can take it up the Tyke Ike, which is one of the toughest towing tests on the planet, but most importantly, I think that this vehicle may do fairly well. So aside from the economy, one of the things about this vehicle that really impresses me is the price, because, as I said, $22,000 for the base model, and then if you get the LE, it's $22,845. If you get the XLE, which comes with a ton of stuff, you're paying $28,000 basically. Now remember that you do have to add the all-wheel drive system, so that's $1,500. Still, you can get the all-wheel drive system in the base model, and if you're getting the base model, you still get a lot of extra kit. If Toyota can maintain the pricing that they've announced, then this will be one of the more affordable vehicles in its class for what you get. Driving it is not exactly what I'd call dynamic. You get a much more relaxed driving feel. Let me give you an example. I'm about to go over this bridge right here, okay? And there's lots of bumps. Ready? Here we go. Bumpity, 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 bump, bump. No problem. If I were in the Corolla, the brother of this vehicle, it would be much more like, okay, yeah. Because you're much lower to the ground, the suspension is much stiffer, especially, of course, in the hatchback. And bottom line, this has very nice wheel travel for a small crossover. So you're getting a better ride, you're getting a much quieter ride, and you smooth out the bumps so much better than you would in a Corolla. This is one of the better CVTs out there. One of the reasons why is because there's a actual first gear and then you have the CVT kick in. As such, off the line, it feels like a regular automatic transmission, and it's extremely efficient. If you need a sporty car that's lower to the ground and everything else, and you want to fall into it every time you want to get in it, sure, get a Corolla. But if you want something that you can scoot your tush right into and have an easy driving experience, this is your car. All right, guys, I want to talk to you about the Toyota Corolla Cross's ability to go off-road. More importantly, its off-road chops, because you might be surprised at some of these numbers. Its approach angle is 18.9 degrees. Now, if you look at the Subaru Impreza, it's 17.6 degrees, and the Crosstrek, which is a lifted Impreza, 18 degrees even. So this is actually better. Departure angle, 26.6 degrees. That is way better than the Impreza and just under the Crosstrek. So once again, this vehicle actually has a pretty impressive set of numbers for banging around off-road. Just kidding. And another thing to keep in mind is that you get just over 8 inches of ground clearance with this vehicle. Finally, let's talk about the four-wheel drive system, because what they don't discuss in the brochure is the electromagnetic coupling system that allows you to split the torque 50-50 from the front wheels to the rear wheels. And it's simple. What happens when you're driving is that it disconnects the system, allowing just the front wheels to pull the car along for the best efficiency. Then, let's say you lose traction, like what I'm doing here when I'm going off-road. It can take up to 50% of the torque and send it back to the rear wheels, and the system is effective. And basically, you don't have to worry about hitting too many buttons like you do with some other systems. We will be getting this vehicle up in Colorado, and we will be taking it into the snow and into the Rockies soon. The final point I wanted to make about the Toyota Corolla Cross is that I think it's going to sell quite well because it's logical. Because it gets good mileage, it's affordable, it's a Toyota, so it already has that branding. I gotta tell you, after driving this thing all day long, considering how much it costs, I think it's best in class. Thanks for joining me for the Fast Lane Car. This is Nathan. I'll see you next time.